fuck up. I'm going to get to it. It's Monday. There's like a million news stories I have to cover. Jesus Christ, dude.
Break down exactly what happened here with SVB.
Yeah, the anatomy of a collapse of a big bank and the anatomy of a rescue from the federal government. Let's look at how we got here. First of all, what is SVB? It is the epicenter of tech startups, venture capital, Silicon Valley Bank. It is the 16th largest bank, or it was, in the United States. And this is really the oxygen for technology. The technology sector really goes through SVB. So a very important bank here. By the end of 2022, it had $175 billion in total deposits. And here is the anatomy of the bank run, right? This is how much money it had at the end of the year. Just on Thursday, there were $42 billion in withdrawals from depositors, right? So something happened here where people wanted to take their money out.
Yeah, something happened here is basically Peter Thiel and others openly stating that this bank no longer had enough. This bank no longer had leverage, and once a couple people pull out and they can't actually pay, then a lot of other people are going to run and try to get their money out. Okay, I don't know what Peter Thiel's own personal interest was. Okay, I don't know why he did that. I don't know why he engineered this bank run. Like, it's very odd. Like, I don't know what he gets out of this. I don't know what he gains out of this, but like he definitely did play a role in this. But put him in jail? Yeah, okay. That's laughable. If you think that someone like Peter Thiel is going to go to jail, you're delusional. He runs this entire system. Like, he is a billionaire. This system is entirely designed for billionaires. The only time a billionaire would ever go to fucking jail, I guess, is if they like somehow fucked over other billionaires that are wealthier than he is in like a very significant way. Like, I can't even. It's like unimaginable, low key. Like, it's unimaginable to think about like how a multi-billionaire would actually ever go to fucking jail without like losing all of their money. You know what I mean? Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, but like Jeffrey Epstein's billions were like handed to him, I guess, kind of. Like Sam Bankman-Fried, exactly. That's a great example. That's a great example. The only time a billionaire gets punishment is if he fucked over other billionaires. That's my point. Bernie Madoff, Sam Bankman-Fried, these are guys who fucked over other billionaires. Jeffrey Epstein basically ran out of use. You know what I mean? I think he did his like he did his like CIA blackmail operation. And then the government had no use for him, so they disposed of him. Elizabeth Holmes fucked over other shareholders, fucked over other billionaires. Like, these are all great examples of people who were billionaires who fucked over other billionaires. You can't do that. Sam bank run fraud is what you used to call him. Exactly.
Out, and this bank unraveled here. So what happened? Why did they get there? Well, this is a company that for years took deposits in the good times when interest rates were very low, and it grew and grew and grew. And those deposits grew, and it put that money into long-dated treasuries, into treasuries, safe, super safe treasuries, right? So this is how much they had. At the end of 2022, $128 billion worth of treasury. Look, that is amazing how much it gained. But then as things started to go south, when interest rates were rising, those were less valuable, and the company actually was selling those treasuries at a loss. When that word got out, people got nervous. The stock in the bank started to decline. Depositors started to withdraw their money. They were also withdrawing their money because technology, that sector, was in a downturn, right? And so instead of putting money into the bank, depositors were taking money out of the bank, and the bank could not sustain it. Come to the rescue, the United States government. The FDIC is going to insure up to $250,000 in normal times, and now you're going to have this facility so that above that level, everyone will be made whole. Not the bondholders and not the stockholders of the bank, we should be point out, but the people who have their deposits in that bank. Also, Signature Bank.
Because remember, like, people that fucking put their money in that bank, they don't have a, like, they're not going, oh, please, like, invest the cash that you have. Please invest the cash that I gave you into some other shit. Like, they're not saying that. They might be capitalists themselves, but, like, remember, we all need banks. Okay? We all need fucking banks. We need banks, no matter what happens. You know what I mean? In the wild, wild west, we still had banks. Okay? So the idea that, like, you could do without a bank is silly. And I say this as a motherfucker who doesn't even have a credit card. Okay? Do you understand? And when you have a bank, yeah, you need to you need to have that insured by the federal government. My parents are saying this and the other banks are going to trigger the next recession. Yeah. That huge tweet you skipped was basically a tech company owner talking about how they heard about this in a huge group chat and participated in the bank run and bought stock while the bank run was happening. Yeah, I mean, the entire process is fraudulent. Is it common practice for depositors to exceed the $250K FDIC limit? I think it is, but maybe I'm wrong. Like, I've thought it was, you know what I mean? Pretty sure it is. And you want to know what the other hilarious part about it is? Yes, most rich people bank with one institution usually because they get benefits from that, right? When you have a lot of money and you put it into one bank, especially if it's like a smaller bank too, that bank uses your money, so they give you benefits. They offer you loans, for example, or mortgages with a very low interest rate, sometimes as low as like literally 0%. Now, I don't know how people are doing that, okay, but you get a personal banker, you get a lot of amenities. Now, if you're banking in an institution that is massive, the amount of number is like, it's always going to be above 250K, first and foremost. But the amount of number goes up for you to be like a high value client and have access to like immediate 24/7 wiring, shit like that, all these like idiotic amenities. You need like around, I think, $10 million for Bank of America. If you have like a couple mil, they still won't fucking do that either. Like they won't. They literally will be like, oh, you're above 250K. It doesn't matter. We're using your money, and you get no amenities, right? But once you get to like, I think the 10 million status, that's when you get like, that's when you get special privileges. Okay. But if you're at a regional bank, you put $1 million into one bank, you bank with one place, and you put a million into that bank, then that's it. Chase private client is way less than 1 million. Really? Bank of America's first level just to be a pro member is a 250K deposit. Yes, but that's not what we're talking about. How are you so familiar with all of this? I am, one, a rich person, and two, on top of that, I read, and also, this is what I do for my job. I don't know if you know this, but I'm, this is what I do as a job. So there is that. Unfortunately, a big chunk of my job revolves around trying to understand banking, trying to understand, the markets, trying to understand finance. I have to have like some level of financial literacy, despite the fact that I absolutely fucking hate it. I feel like the stock guy has a better grasp on this than you, says Fidel Castro. I don't understand how motherfuckers, it's wonderful in so many ways, because it's just like tech bro culture, Silicon Valley, rich people wanting to be fucking coddled, and then the big government stepping in and doing the right thing in this circumstance. It's just so good. It's just so great. It's awesome. It's such an important story.
This is the other shoe to drop this weekend. This is a bank that specializes in services for law firms. It also got into big trouble. The government will also back the depositors there. So a really important weekend of developments. You guys, this could have been a very different morning if we didn't have the Treasury and the Fed working all weekend to try to make sure that folks were made whole. And I'll say it, this is because interest rates rose so dramatically, something was going to break in the economy, right? And this is what broke, guys.
Yeah, and that comes as the Fed chair is only warning that interest rates are going to continue to rise. Christine Romans, we'll wait to see what the markets say when they open. Thank you.
With us now, CNN business correspondent Rahel Solomon and Wall Street Journal senior special writer Justin Baer. Good morning, Just, by the way.
I'm trying to find my old video from like around 2018, talking about the Dodd-Frank repeal, like the deregulation that came from the Trump era, because I specifically talked about a potential liquidity crisis within banks that was literally foreseen. It was foreseen. Everyone knew that it was going to happen. Like, literally everyone knew it was going to happen, and then it happened. I have so many videos from back then where I was talking about this shit, getting fucking mad, and how because if I remember it correctly, they did it at such an interesting moment where, like, everyone was hyper-focusing, the media was hyper-focusing on something entirely different. They did it. They did it at a time when, like, I think there was some other shit that Donald Trump was saying, and everyone fucking... everyone was like hyper focusing on that, and then this came in like behind closed doors. I remember what I was talking about, where it was like they did this in the same room, basically, like one door down inside of Congress. Let's further venture into what happened.
Latest
here.
Reporting is headline: How Silicon Valley Turned on Silicon Valley Bank. So good to have both of you on.
Wait, is this the gay one? Please tell me, is this the article? Is that the article that Wall Street Journal wrote and the CNN had the... Stop. No shot.
Reading your notes and what you wrote about this, you have been very strong about this and tough on what you are calling this a bailout.
Oh, no, this is a different
you
one.
Said there's no other way of putting it. This is a bailout, no matter what terminology you want to use.
Yeah.
Why are you saying that?
Well, I mean, clearly there are some that are getting bailed out, right? You know, the depositors of these particular banks are, many of which are companies, right? They need to make payroll. The money was trapped in these institutions. And so the government took extraordinary actions to allow them to access that money, right? Even as those banks were going through receivership and had failed. So whether, again, the taxpayer money was used to implement those plans, the government said no, but clearly there was a rescue of a particular group of people and businesses.
Mm-hmm. So, Rahel, one of the things that...
Everybody fucking talks shit about bailouts when it's bankers, but no one cares because at the top of the hour, gifters are bailing out those who do not have the finances to avoid the 3-minute ad break. Oh, all of a sudden, when the top of the hour comes along, you're like, oh, please bail me out. You know what I mean? It's fucked up. Bailouts for everybody. The Raging Hoppa bailing out 10 people from seeing the top of the hour ad break. Glizzy Gobbler with the 5. Bill Vog with the 5. Blasted Say with the 5. An anonymous user with a 10. God damn, that's a good segue. You already know what it is. But the top of the hour ad break is here. MP Sharky with another 5. 813 Sino Bike Girl with another 10. God damn it. Bailing out all you motherfuckers. If you, of course, are not lucky enough to be bailed out by a gifted subscriber, all you need to do is subscribe on your own for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Woo! Woo! Bussy Smollett, thank you for the 5. Get the subs. Warson 20 with a 5. Robe on that with another 5. Bailouts for everybody. Big Rat Wizard, thank you for the 10.
That MJ noted that's really important is what the government's doing now, and they're setting up this emergency lending facility. So part of the reason that SVB got into a lot of trouble is that they had to sell these long-term treasuries at a loss. Then they went out to try to capital raise
WR,
last
thank you for the 20.
That's spooked.
Try to get $2 billion, and they saw, and depositors, and investors saw the loss.
Georgie 3375, thank you for the 5.
You're selling these at a loss because interest rates have gone up. Your securities aren't as attractive anymore. Yep. What the government's doing now would prevent against someone else having to do a capital raise like that, right?
Right. That's exactly it. Banking is all about confidence, right? Confidence in the system. Confidence that if you or I or anyone here at this table puts their money into a bank, if we need it tomorrow, that money will be there. What happened here with SVB was a lack of confidence. And so you started to see all of these depositors rush to get all of their money out. And that's what led to this
Thank
panic.
you, Sakura
So what
Gore,
the Fed is trying
for the
to do,
10.
what regulators are trying to do here is to prevent that from happening again, right? Sort of insulate the risk here, insulate the contagion so that this doesn't spread beyond an SVB story. And that's why you saw officials.
In layman's terms, this is an old-fashioned, is it an old-fashioned run on the bank is what happened?
Absolutely,
That's what people
100%.
understand. Yeah.
And I mean, I spoke to a founder who had a lot of her money in this bank last night, and she said that, the tech community is very small. The VC founder community is very small. She said early last week, text messages were starting to go around. It became chatter. And as the days went on, screenshots were going around in terms of, hey, my investor said, pull your money. And so it really did lead to a high-tech problem in terms of tech, but really leading to an old-fashioned bank run.
Yeah, I think Patrick McHenry from North Carolina said it was a Twitter-fueled bank run because these are very online people who were all talking about those messages. This $250 cap, they're basically waiving it with the steps that we're seeing.
Motherfuckers be like, get a real job. I used to work at Bank of America, and it's so funny that they use BOFA internally. So unserious. Yeah, both of these nuts. I don't understand what you're saying. Please stop saying that. Please stop saying that.
Yesterday, I think over 90% of SVB's funds were uninsured. So are they going to permanently raise it now? Is it just completely ineffective? What is even the point of the $250,000 cap?
I mean, that's the open question, right? Because I think some of the added steps, including that fund that was established, is there to support other banks if they find themselves in a similar situation, right? They can borrow from the government. They can post collateral at par, essentially making it a lot less expensive in order to borrow, and in the event that there is some kind of run. But in this case, they decided to waive plow right through that deposit insurance cap, in allowing these, what are essentially in most cases companies, right, that have a lot of money at these institutions.
Are you surprised that they didn't get acquired over the weekend?
I think that was certainly part of the process, right? So the FDIC had initiated an auction for.
Why bother being responsible if you know the government will always bail you out, brother? That is literally libertarianism seeping through your conversations. Okay, that is exactly the same argument that these motherfuckers push for. You understand that, right? Like, what are you, an Austrian economist? No, of course the government is supposed to bail you out in certain circumstances. But that bailout comes at a price. And that price is supposed to be that these bailouts are supposed to be rare. Okay? How do we ensure that these bailouts are rare? Regulation. Not deregulation. Regulation. Stop talking about the fucking moral hazard like you're a bunch of goddamn Austrian economists, dude. What the fuck is happening? Regulation. That's it. I understand what you're saying. Like when you say, well, these guys are literally utilizing government bailouts as another like tool for risk management. And that part is true. They do that. That's why so many, not just banks, but so many companies can easily engage in stock buybacks. They don't feel the need to keep cash on hand in any meaningful capacity because they know that like, what's going to happen if we are to go bankrupt, if we're like a major industry, if we're a major corporation? What, you think the government's going to let us go bankrupt? You think we're not going to fucking keep making planes? You think we're not going to keep making cars? Of course not. The government will bail us out. If we're, for example, a profoundly important part of like American logistics, let's say we're a, freight carrier train, right? Most people don't even think about trains in that way, except for the past couple of weeks, since that's all we talk about now, which is cool. I like that. But those trains are keeping your water supply drinkable, for example. They ship chlorine, right? It's huge. It's profoundly important, right? So a lot of those companies or airliners, for example, can engage in what didn't used to be legal like it is now. Shouts out to Ronald Reagan for that. Engage in risky stock buybacks instead of dumping some of their or reinvesting some of the additional cash they have back into, I don't know, safety measures, hiring more people, which also beefs up safety and security, any of that kind of thing. Why? Because ultimately, if they get into a tricky situation where they have to, use all of the remaining money that they have, one, they've still protected the shareholders, the people that they have a fiduciary responsibility towards, the people that really matter in this circumstance, right? And the government will protect them.
For SVB, it didn't. Obviously, there was no winning bid for that auction. I think it's possible that we could see other assets that get sold in the coming days. We saw overnight, or rather this morning, HSBC step in and buy the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank. So there are interesting businesses in both of these banks that could warrant some interest. It could be some more deals that we see.
Yeah, I think they said that J.P. Morgan and PNC among the suitors, so SVB holding company, which would exclude the SVB bank part of it. But I think you raised a very good question about the question about the Feds, whether the Feds will listen to what has been said to stop raising rates because this contributed to it. Everyday folks are concerned about this. This isn't just tech people. This isn't just people who have private equity. This affects all aspects of the economy. So if people are at home, Rahel, and they're sitting there wondering, as they have been all weekend, am I affected by this? What do you say to them?
Look, it's a great question. I mean, I think we are all so connected in terms of banking. I think the big difference here is that this was largely a very sort of insulated bank, right? A big bank nonetheless, but sort of focusing on a specific sector of the economy. A very important
Republic?
Yeah, a very important part of the economy, but a secular sort of insulated part of the economy. I think the reason why the Fed stepped up as quickly as they did is to prevent the risk to people like everyone watching at home, right? To protect other regional banks so that we have confidence in the banking system, and that's why we saw the type of rapid response that we did.
I don't know, Justin. I mean, you point First Republic was down like 30%. That we have images of these long lines of people going to First Republic over the weekend trying to take money out. They're standing, but Signature is not. And these are not just banks that cater to Silicon Valley. You wrote in your piece about how this exposes some of the vulnerabilities that we still have.
The banking system. Sure. Well, as you said earlier, I mean, this is all based on confidence, right? And the whole financial system, any financial institution is dependent on the ongoing confidence. So once that's lost, or once it becomes lost,
Hasan bought his house 2 months after mine. We'll never see interest rates like that again. Hell yeah, baby. That's called insider trading. Or I control the government. Have you thought about that? For a dumb guy who doesn't really understand financial markets, my lack of interest in participating in the stock market, especially right now, and also purchasing a home right before this shit fucking blows up, pretty good timing, I'd say. Hey, I ain't no big city lawyer, and I'm certainly not someone who understands the financial system, but ultimately did a pretty good job on that, I think. You got seriously lucky? What the fuck do you mean I got seriously lucky? I talked about all of this already. Come on, man. Come on. What do you mean? What do you, that's not luck. It would be luck if I hadn't talked about interest rates inevitably going up over and over again as I was like literally purchasing the house. I did. I literally talked about it. Talked about it all the time. Now, I bought at the highest pricing, technically, right? So there is that. But luckily, the house I bought was legitimately much cheaper for square footage wise than all of the other houses. And it was still incredibly expensive. Do not misunderstand me, of course, because it's in Los Angeles. But the reality is, when you say you bought at the highest point, that implies that there is going to be a lower point. That implies that there's going to be a lower point in the housing market when, like, you basically don't understand how like the American government has created a system specifically for the housing market prices to always go up. You understand? Like, absent of, especially because I live in a big city, absent of any other, full-blown financial meltdown, like fucking game-changing, world-ending financial meltdown, like a 2008 times 2, okay? The federal government's entire sole reason for existing, and perhaps the most like socialized aspect of the gains, revolve around property being like an investment, property being the main wealth generation mechanism for every American. I think that this is bullshit. I think it's at the heart of the issue, right? I think housing is supposed to be personal property and not necessarily capital that you can dump a lot of fucking funds into and sit back and expect it to appreciate. But the federal government does everything it can, and local and state governments do everything they can to ensure that housing prices always go up, which is ironic because, that is the reason why there are so many homeless people. That is the reason why there's so much issue. There's so many issues with the way that people's quality of life has gone down. That's it. These chatters from Iowa don't realize that people want to live in LA and $1 million buys a regular house, not a McMansion where they live. No. I mean, this is like in every respect a Los Angeles McMansion. Like, let's be real. Anyway, I'm a YouTube frog. One of my first messages. Thanks for getting me out of the right-wing rabbit hole. Was kind of lost, but you definitely helped. Hell yeah. Yeah, I think that commodification of shelter is devastating. That is one thing that Kropotkin was absolutely on the money on. Anyway.
It can lead to what we saw this past week, right? And that can flare up elsewhere very quickly. Which again is why you saw the government go beyond just looking at these two institutions over the weekend, but saying, well, how do we avoid seeing other lenders, particularly those that again, the regulations have changed over the past decade with respect to smaller and medium-sized banks. How can we protect and insulate those, not only those banks, but more importantly,
is it
their
just
customers?
Because they're smaller, medium-sized banks, or is it because they're holders of a lot of mortgages, for example?
I mean, all of the above, right?
Yeah.
Every bank's balance sheet is going to look a little bit differently, right? I mean, everyone has had to deal with the impact of rising interest rates. Some did so, obviously, a lot more prudently than others, right? And so there will be others that will resemble in some ways the way Silicon Valley Bank looked, right? And we see some of the other names get very quickly attached to what happened to them last week. But again, we'll
two
have
of
to
the
see. It's all
largest
based
bank
on confidence.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we get closer to the markets and the day the banks start opening up.
And some of them have actually opened up.
Take a look at what CoffeeZilla had to say about it.
Failures in history happened this week. But before we talk about why, I have a question. Why is Jim Cramer so good at being so bad at his job? Just months before they both collapsed, he said this.
These are never, ever talked about. Why? Because they're too boring? I like to make money. Boring is good. Watch out for Signature Bank. That's my fave. SVB Financial, don't you want? This company's a merchant bank with a deposit base that Wall Street has been mistakenly concerned about.
Bro, only in this sector could you be wrong so fucking frequently, and it literally does not matter. Like, you still get to fail upwards. All of these fucking donkeys have done similar things. Like, it's not just Jim Cramer, right? It's not